Kakadosh Boker Tov. We're just continuing on Daf Petet Amud Aleph Masechet Pesahim. Yeah, so the Gemara said, Mishum deika chazeh v'shok b'kohanim udach leleh. If you remember, we were talking about that if you have a chazeh v'shok of the shlamim, now kohanim usually eat this. So now what's going to happen is that if you're going to have a case where there are no kohanim in the korban, so then you have a technical problem. Why? Because now what's going to happen is that the kohen, if it's going to be the korban pesach, they need to be limnuyav. They need to be considered part of the group. And here, if they're not part of the group, they cannot eat it. And the chazeh v'shok of a shlamim usually goes to the kohanim. So the Gemara says, fine. So every single person should bring a kohen with his korban pesach. Meaning we're all one group. So we're going to bring Mr. Kohen. He's going to be in our group. The other Mr. Kohen is going to go in the other group. The other Mr. Kohen, and each one is going to go in different groups. And then by doing that, you have no problem. So says the Gemara, Hi Kohen echidami. One second, what are you doing with this Kohen? If he already did the Pesach, Dilma Hai Pesachu, and then this is going to be the Korban Pesach, so then what's going to happen is that he's going to find the Korban Pesach, which is Shilolim Nuyav, which means that you cannot eat it if you're not registered. You cannot eat it if you're not subscribed to it. And if he didn't do the Korban Pesach, Dilma Shlamimhu, maybe it's a Korban Shlamim, then it comes out that he never did a Korban Pesach. Which means that what's this Kohen going to do? It's either that if you're going to tell me now, let's save you. We're going to save you. How are we going to save everybody here? Very simple. You're going to bring a Shlamim, and then we make like a condition. But one second, this Kohen has a technical problem because if he's going to be with us, and this is not a Pesach, that means it comes out that he didn't do Korban Pesach. Yeah, it saved us, you're right, but now we could give him the Chazeh V'Shok. That means even if it was a Shlamim, we give him the Chazeh V'Shok, and if it's Korban Pesach, we give it. But one second, but what's going to happen now? He didn't do a Korban Pesach. So says the Gemara, "V'neiti kol chamisha achad kohen delova Pesach, v'nimne ilave ani chamisha Pesachim, temimar avshach, ik achad delovi Pesach v'kanav kibei." Says one second. Very simple. If you remember, what was the case? There were 5 people that one of them, their Korban Pesach was not good because they found like a blemish on one. They found a wart. You remember the wart on one of them. So therefore, if you have the 5 people and only one of them, they had a Korban Pesach which was not good. So he says, very simple. You know what you do? All these 5. Right, what you do is that these 5 together, they come and they bring a Korban Pesach, but one of them did not do the Korban Pesach. There were 5 people. One of them, they found after the slaughtering, after everything, right, they're skinning, all of a sudden they found the wart and they realized it's a blemish. It wasn't good. You don't know which one. So you have a group of 5. But out of one of those 5, for sure, one of them did not do a Korban Pesach. So all 5 of them bring it together. By all 5 of them bringing it together, so for sure, one of them was not a Korban Pesach, so then it was going to be okay. So says the Gemara, Ela mishum dekamayet ba'achilat shlamim. Says no, you can't do that because what you're doing is you're minimizing the achilat shlamim. Ti'ilu Pesach, because what happens is that remember, by a Korban Pesach, it's liyom v'layla, it's only eaten for day and night, right? Which means, it says over here, even though, right, it says, nimshach azman zeh enu nesar notar, that means, which means that it's not going to become notar, which means by a Korban Pesach, it's only 1 day, 1 night. V'hilu shlamim, but shlamim, it's 2 days and 1 night. You understand? Which means that the shlamim, you have an extra day in order to eat the Korban Pesach. So because of that, he says what's happening is that you are burning kochim kesherim. Because if you're going to come and you're going to now make this into a Korban Pesach, and really, Be'emet, you didn't need a Korban Pesach, and it was going to be brought as a shlamim, it's better to bring it as a shlamim. Because a shlamim, you have more time in order to eat it. So if you have more time in order to eat it, you're not going to burn it. And then it's better. So therefore, you just stop burning kochim. So says the Gemara, "V'naiti motara Pesach." Right, just bring one of them a Pesach. V'neiman, you should say, "Ididi balmum." If mine is a balmum, so then this is what I'm bringing is a Pesach. And if mine is a good one, so this is what I'm bringing is going to be shlamim. The motara Pesach nechal yom v'layla echad. Because he says because the motara Pesach is going to be eaten just like the Korban Pesach, which is basically layla, right, yom v'layla. So therefore, there's not going to be the ta'ana that you can make a condition about the Pesach or shlamim because of the time eating it. So the Gemara says no. Are you allowed to do such a thing as something which is called motara Pesach? Here it says motara Pesach is a korban that was consecrated for a korban Pesach, but wasn't brought at the end as a Torah Pesach. For example, right, if right now it got lost and they brought something else, right, they brought something else instead of it and then they found it. That's called motara Pesach. Okay? So says the Gemara, Are you going to be able to come and bring it afterwards? Right? You can't do that. That's the Mutara Pesach. You don't do Mutara Pesach lechatechila. It's only b'diavad if it already happened, but you don't do a lechatechila. So the Gemara says, "V'nitrechu v'naiti motar Pesach." Says 1 second. Fine. So why don't they bring a korban the Mutara Pesach, right, from somebody that has it, which means that they should actually look for it, right, or with money which was consecrated for korban Pesach. So the Gemara says, "Ela mishum semicha." Right? But rather it's all because of semicha. You know what semicha is? The leaning on the animal. What does that mean? The ilu Pesach, lo by semicha. Pesach, they don't lean on the animal whatsoever. The ilu motar, but the motara Pesach, which is a regular korban shlamim, by semicha, you do it. And therefore you can't do it misafek. Meaning you can't do it as a doubt, right? Because maybe it's going to be a Pesach, and therefore it's lo letzorech. If it's lo letzorech, it's considered an avodah b'kodshim. Which means if you're going to lean on the animal and you're not obligated to lean on the animal, that's considered avodah, right? That means you're using kochim. You're not allowed to use kochim. So therefore you have a technical problem. If you lean on it and you didn't need to lean on it, it's averah. But if you don't need to lean on it, it's also a problem, because if it was a shlamim, you do need to lean on it. So because of that, you have a big problem here. So it says the Gemara, hatena korban anashim. But that's only a korban of men, because only the men, they lean on the korbanot. What about korban nashim? What about a korban of women, right? Which korban of women, they never need semicha, because it's not right that women come and they lean on the animal. So therefore, they don't do semicha. Semicha is only done by men, not by women. So Michael, what are you going to say then? So he says in the Gemara, ela mishum matanot, but rather because of the matanot of the blood. Why? Because they're not the same. Meaning, how do you sprinkle the blood of a shlamim, and how do you sprinkle the blood of a korban pesach? So on the korban pesach, what do we say? Dilu pesach, it's matana achat, vilu shlamim shtaim shehen marba, which means that the korban pesach, right, it's only one matana, it's only one throwing of the blood. To do with the shlamim, which is right, it says over here, the shlamim is shtaim shehen marba, which are the two corners, right? You throw them on the two corners, right? And then what happens is that when you throw it, it disperses, right? But you're throwing it towards a corner. So it gets this corner. Then you do the opposite side. They throw it and it gets this corner. So now you have all four corners of the mizbeach, but it's shte matanot. It's two sprinklings, she'en marba, which become four. Right? But since you're doing it at the corner, it splits. Okay, so it's shte matanot, she'en marba. So says the Gemara, right? Second, right? He says over here, ma'inaf kamina. What do I care whether you're doing one matana or shte matanot, she'en marba? What do I care? So it says, Vatana, we learned in the Mishnah in Zevachim, Kol hanitanina mizbeach hachitzon shenatana mematana achat kiper. All of the korbanot. Like this. So basically, what we're trying to say is, what's the nafkamina? We already learned Kol hanitanina mizbeach hachitzon shenatana mematana achat kiper, which means like this. Even if it is that you need two matanot, which are four, if you came and you sprinkled even one matana, meaning once you came and you sprinkled the blood to the mizbeach, what happens is you're yotzei chova. That's only in the outer mizbeach. Remember that mizbeach hachitzon. There's the outer mizbeach, which is called mizbeach hachitzon, mizbeach hachoshet, right? All these, the outer one, and then there's mizbeach hapnimi, the inner one, or mizbeach hazahav, because it was made out of gold. So the inner one is different, because the inner one was done for the Kodesh Kadashim. You needed 4 matanot. You need like all 4 matanot. It was a completely different. So the ketoret was done there. The outer one was, there are 2 different halachot. So this is the outer mizbeach. Okay, so he says over here, Ella, but rather mishum dilu bepesach b'shficha, dilu shlamim b'zrika. The korban pesach, the sprinkling of the blood. We always use the word sprinkling, but really it's throwing. It's like pouring. Yeah, that's what it says over here. You're shofech benachat min hakli on the kina mizbeach by the yesod. You're pouring it gently from the utensil onto the mizbeach. But the shlamim, you're throwing it. You're sprinkling. Right? What does that mean? You're doing it very far away, which means this one you're coming and you're taking the utensil and you're like pouring it, right? You're pouring it down. The other one on the mizbeach. No. We're talking about always the outside. Always the Pesachim and the shlamim are kadashim kalim. They're always on the outside. Always on the outside. No, the only difference I told you was the outside and the inside. The outside is called, it said over here. He said mizbeach hachitzon, the outer one. So it's mizbeach hachitzon, mizbeach hapnimi. The inner one is mizbeach pnimi. The outer one is mizbeach nechoshet, but it's made out of copper. The inner one is mizbeach hazahav, made out of gold. So there are different names for each one. If I remember correctly, I think there's 4 or 5 names for the differences between them, right? And each one was a reason for it, right? The main ones, which are Mizbach HaChitzon, right? The Mizbach HaNechoshet, and the other one, Mizbach HaZahav, right? The Mizbach HaPnimi. Okay? So, which one? The Korban Pesach, we do Shficha, which means we come gently, and we come very closely, and we start pouring the blood. Kenega Yesod, we come and we start pouring the blood. That is the Korban Pesach. Yeah, 100%. No, it doesn't have to be. I'm saying, but that's just that's halacha. Yeah. Now it says over here, though, right? It says v'dam zivachecha yishafech. That's why, because you have to pour. You have to pour. It's shficha. The shlamim is bizrika. So bizrika, because it says there also in the pasuk v'zareku. So zareku means you have to throw it. You don't throw it so close. So you have to be far away, and you're throwing it with a mizrak, which means with this like type of a shovel, whatever you want to call it. That's how you're throwing it towards the mizbech. So because of that, it's two completely different halachot. So says the Gemara, "My nafkamina." Again, what's a nafkamina? What do I care? What do I care? The difference between the shlamim and the korban pesach. Vatanya, we learned in a brayta. Kol hanitarim bizrika shenatram b'shvicha yatsa. Even b'diavad, if you did everything b'shvicha, it's also zechova. So what do I care? You brought this korban pesach. It might have been a shlamim, but even if it was a shlamim, it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Because even if it was a shlamim and you did shvicha, you're also zechova. So says the Gemara, no. Emar de kaminan diavad. It's only b'diavad if you already did it. Lechatchila, no, not lechatchila. So because of this, that lechatchila, we don't want to do it this way. That's why we want to make sure, what is this sacrifice? Is it a korban shlamim or korban pesach? We don't just say, just bring whatever you care. Don't worry about it. But if it's not a pesach, it's a shlamim. No, it's not that simple. Because why? Because lechatchila, we want to make sure that you're bringing the proper korban. Okay, very good. Mishnah Peitet Amud Aleph. Yeah, 89A. Says the Mishnah, אומר לבניו עדיין שוחט את פסח למי שיעלה מכם ראשון לירושלים, כיוון שהכניס הראשון ורובו, זכה בחלקו ומזכה את אחיו עמו. If a person comes and he says to his children, I'm going to slaughter the Korban Pesach on the first person that comes up to Jerusalem, to Yerushalayim. The second of the first one comes and he put his head and the majority of his body inside of Yerushalayim, he was zoche in his chelek, and he's going to be mizakeh his brothers with him as well. Okay? So it means he's the one that the father Kilo appointed, so now he's going to also appoint the rest of his brothers also as well. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, Shema Mina, we learn from here. We asked the same question, by the way, on every single Mishnah until now that we started in this page. Shema Mina, we learn from here, Yesh Brera, that it does exist the concept of Brera. What was Brera again? Remember, which means that at the time of the Shechita, we didn't know who was going to get there first. And all of a sudden, once the person got there first, so now retroactively I come and I say, this is who it was done for, right? So, which means that's called Yesh Brera, right? So says the Gemara, Shadei B'Shat HaShchita, still it wasn't Mevura. We don't know who's the first one that's going to come in. So that when he's going to come in afterwards, retroactively we're going to find out who was it done for. Says the Gemara, no, right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Kedei lezarzam mitzvot kama. He wasn't doing it that way. He just did it stam to make them quick on doing mitzvot. Meaning the father wanted them to be quick in doing mitzvot. So what did he say? The first one that comes in, right? But really, be'emet, it was on all of them. Yeah, be'emet, it was on all of them. From the time of the shechita, he already knew that. But he was just trying to do it so that way, like quick, so that way, everyone goes running, to go to Yerushalayim. They cannot be dictating. We could also deduce this, because it says umzakeh chavimo, right? He's going to be mizakeh, his brothers with him. If it was going to be that he appointed them at the beginning, so then that's going to be okay. But if you're going to tell me that he didn't appoint them in the beginning, after the Shechita, now he could appoint them? Which means, what does it help now that the first brother that gets into the city, he's Zochen his Chelek, and now he's going to appoint his other brothers? He can't do that. Once you did the Shechita, you can't start appointing other people. So obviously what happened was that from the beginning, everybody was already appointed. But it was just the father was trying to get them to, the enthusiasm. That Tanan says the Mishnah, Nimnin umoshchi nider mimenu, that if they want, they could actually be mevatel ad sheishachet, until the Shechita, right? But after the Shechita, they cannot actually be appointed. Shema Mina, so that's actually a proof. Tanya Miyachi, we also said this exactly in the Braita, where it says, Ma'aseh kadmu banim lebanot. Banot lebanim. There was a story that the girls got to the city even before the boys. And he went to his children, he said, and all of a sudden the girls got there first. Right? The girls, they went running. Yeah? So there it came out that the girls were actually much quicker, and the boys were the ones which were lazy. Right? But the writer says, Nimtzeu banot zochot ubanim lo zachu, but rather the banot zrizot vabanim atzelim. It didn't say that the girls were zocha, that means they got it and then they gave it to the boys. No, it says that the girls were the quick ones and the boys were the lazy ones. You understand? So it's very, very important. Fine. Next, Mishnah. Leolam nimnim alav ad shiye bo kezai lechol echad ve'echad. You're allowed to continue appointing people and registering people, right, and putting subscribing people until you have a kezait for every single person. Which means I could put, let's say, 20 people on the Korban Pesach, and it's still going to be okay as long as everyone has a kezait. But if I'm going to put 500 people on one Korban Pesach, which means that each one does not have a kezait, it's not good. I have to stop when there's not enough of a kezait for each one. Okay.
How do you know?
What?
How do you know?
What do you mean, how do you know?
How many people for one Pesach?
You find out exactly how many kezitim. They would evaluate it. I don't know exactly how they would evaluate it. That's it. No. So he says over here, yeah, he says as follows. He says, Nimnim umoshkim et yedeihem mimenu ad shishachet. So now they are going to come and they're allowed to appoint, right? But then they're allowed to come and take away this appointment until the shechita. But after the shechita, now they can't do any more appointments, or they cannot do bitul minui. I mean, they cannot annul appointments. And remember, you're not allowed to go to two korban. You're not allowed to be appointed as two korban pesachs as well. So if I didn't know, right, that you were doing the korban pesach, and now I already went with one group, and I said, oh, chamor, yeah, I should have gone to a better group. The meat is much better on that side. Yeah, no, it doesn't help. Rabbi Shimon says, Achi izrok adam, and nothing to do with the shechita, has to do with zrikat adam, which means that the ikar, the sprinkling of the blood, right, but not, right, the actual shechita. Again, we keep on saying zrikat adam, aval what?
Yesterday was a shechita.
Exactly. That means even though it keeps on saying zrok adam, it means a shvicha. What?
Yesterday we learned according to shechita.
There's a Mishnah. Mishnah comes before Gemara. Yeah.
Yesterday.
I know, because we were going in the shita of the Tanakama, but the shita of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon comes before Gemara. Meaning the Gemara was obviously going according to Halacha L'Maaseh, according to how they paskin, but that's going according to the Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon argues. He's a Tana. He's allowed to argue. Yeah, before preceded Mishnah. Mishnah is before Gemara. Yeah. So now it says the Gemara. Okay. Maika Mashmalan. What exactly are we coming to teach you? We know it's pashut that you could actually count as many people as you want, as long as everyone has a kezait. Right? It's obvious. So he says no. Hakamashmalan comes to teach you. Which means that even though they went and they counted him in this chabura, and then afterwards all of them they retracted, so then they could retract and they could appoint him with another chabura, and not like Rabbi Yehuda, which we're going to learn later on, which means that it's not going to be kasher unless there's going to be lefachot, which means that he's going to need, that they're going to come and he's going to need minimum of one person from the chabura, the original chabura, which is going to be counted for him. So we're going to see this machloka later on. Tzadik Teta Mudalef, we're going to learn it over there. So basically, we're just coming to teach you. It's not going to be like Rabbi Yehuda over there. There's a machloket there in the Mishnah, but we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, and that's what we're trying to learn in this Mishnah. Okay, 2 dots. Nimninu moshkin eteden shishachet. Rabbi Shimon argues until you do the zrikat adam. Amar Abaya says machloket, the machloket between the Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon is only limashech, right? Is only to go away from the Korban Pesach. The Rabbanan Savre, because the rabbis hold, what does it mean? It comes to teach you meaning you could take your hands away from this group, right? Only when the se is still alive, right before the shechita. Miyot mise right? As if kilu that the hay becomes like a chet. Yeah, miyot mise miyotose when it's still there. Okay, so he comes and he says, right, mechayute but Rabbi Shimon savar mehavayata dese, not from mehayoto that it still is a se, but rather havayata. Havayoto shel se teaches you that you could do it as long as you didn't finish the avodah of the se. The avodah of the se only finishes when you sprinkle the blood. That's when you finish avodah. Avali manot, but to do with counting plus part of it, according to everybody, it's until the shechita, which means that this Mishnah, we learned the Mishnah stam. The Mishnah applies to everything, whether it is to be subscribed or to unsubscribe, to register or to unregister. Here it says the Gemara, it's not true. To do with the unsubscribing, right, that there's no problem, right? Aval limano, to do with the subscribing, according to everybody, is until the shechita. That means to do with the subscribing or registering, shechita. Unsubscribing or that's already the machloka between Tanakama and the Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon, whether it's the sprinkling of the blood or the shechita. The Amar Krab, as the pasuk says, "B'michsat nefashot," which is minui. V'hadar tachosu alaseh. Then it says you have to tachosu is to do shechita, right? Then you're going to do tachosu alaseh. Okay. Tadim Yachi, we also learned it in the Braita. Nimnin u'moshkin tidehem imenu ad shishachet. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shimon says, Nimnin ad shishachet. You're going to be counted until the shechita. So here you see even Rabbi Shimon is saying that. Rabbi Shimon, even though Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah said shizrok et adam, here is saying ad shishachet. Why? Because we're talking about the minui. The minui could only be done until shechita. U'moshkin ad shizrok et adam. But the moshkin is going to be until shizrok et adam. Petet amubet 89b Mishnah. הממנה עמו אחר בחלקו. Right? הממנה עמו אחר בחלקו, which means one of the bnei chabura that was with him, right, without asking reshut from the other bnei chabura, they came and, right, they went and they did it. On his portion, without asking permission from the chabura, which means this is a club. What does it mean it's a club? We're all one club. We're all one group. Imagine right now I went and I included somebody without letting the group know. Yeah, on my portion.
And you're doing the shechita also?
Nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter who does the shechita. No. The shechita is being done afterwards. The shechita is being done afterwards. Yeah, and then then they will know about it. Yeah. No. Usually anyway, it was written that there were 10. Usually, there were 10 people. That case of 5 was just stumped. You understand? Usually it was around 10 people. But technically, you could be right. Well, they could do one person could do a korban pesach if you didn't have it. Usually it's done with a chabura. It's always done with a chabura. Okay, so what happened? They're allowed to come and say, and you're going to come and take with your oreach to another place and eat it with yourselves. And he's going to eat it from his own portion. And they're allowed to. Which means that here, all of a sudden now, according to this Tana, you're allowed to divide. So imagine, we were one group, right? Everyone here, we're all one group. And all of a sudden, one of the people of this group, they wanted to come and they wanted to give it to somebody, to an outsider. What we call forastero. What? Yeah, a stranger. Yeah, so what happened? All of a sudden, he comes and we found out about it. We're not happy about it. So what do? No problem. Here's your portion. Go eat with him. You suppose you give him his portion. Now go eat with him. We're here. We're in our chabura. The other guy goes, huh? That's what the Tana just said. Says the Gemara. They become 2 chaburot. Yeah. So Yibailehu. So now the Gemara is going to ask, Bnei chabura shayu yadav shelechamen yafot. Right, which means what happens if you have a bnei chabura, that one of them his hands were very, very nice, right? Which means here it says, right, he was a ravtan, he was a glutton. It was a person that he liked to eat a lot. So he eats and eats and eats. You understand? These guys that, they go to the all-you-can-eat and they just empty out the place, yeah? So Ma'u she'amru, what's so funny? Yeah? So Ma'u she'amru lo, tel chelkecha v'tzeh. Can they also tell him the same thing? Meaning, can they come and say, you know what, take your chelek and go? At the end of the day, they were all on chabura. Can they now come and tell him, take your portion and go? But they're afraid. This guy's going to come and eat the entire korban pesach. They're not going to have anything left. They want meat. So are they allowed to come and do that? So miyamnin and do we say matzi amar lehu, that he could tell them hakabildun, you accepted me. You accepted me without any tzna, without any conditions. So therefore, 1 second. So therefore, I could eat everything that I want. Or dilma, or maybe matzu lemei malei, they could tell him ki kablina lekune zevicha. When do we accept you only to fix a sacrifice, right? In order that there shouldn't be any leftovers and it's going to become notar. But we didn't accept you to eat more. Meaning we accepted you to be part of our group, but we don't want leftovers. So we needed another guy, so we bring you in. We don't want you to finish all our portions as well. You know, meaning we don't just want a kazait, we want to eat well. So Tashema, we're going to try to bring the proof to answer this question. What's the reasoning of our Mishnah that our Mishnah said that we just send the guy away? We give him his portion, we send the guy away. What's going on? So it says, isn't it the exact same, like the same concept that one of these guys are hungry and they're able to eat a lot? So it's anything. This guy invited another guest. You understand? So the fact that he invited another guest without their knowledge, right, that in itself could be a problem. Why? Because that's like he's eating a lot. If you're going to tell me, right? So 1 second, if you're going to tell me now that Yadav Yafot he could actually come and he could say, no, but you accepted me. And once you accepted me, even though I eat a lot, but you accepted me. So then it should be the same thing like this, Yadav Yafot, which means, so why can they come and throw out this guy that he invited an extra guy? So the Gemara says, they said, no, Deot Shane. It's different because it's different people. It wasn't the same person. Before, right, in the case that we just mentioned right now, it was the same guy, but just he eats a lot. So all of a sudden we become afraid. But really, Be'emet, it's the same guy. Over here, it's a different individual. Meaning this friend of ours, he went and he invited another friend. It's another de'ah, it's another mind. It's somebody completely different. So because of that, right, Deot Shani, because even if you're going to tell me him and his friend are going to eat, right, from the Bnei Chabura, right, which means they're going to eat in one chelek, Matzi Amrile, they could tell him, we don't want a stranger by us. Meaning they could tell him, listen, we don't like this, that you're inviting people. You understand? We are a group. That's it.
It's also an assumption because he has a nice hands. You're gonna assume it's an assumption because of that.
No. It was saying it in a very nice way. It was saying it in a very, very nice way. It was like a cynical way. They said he has nice hands, meaning that he continues eating and eating with his hands. Yeah, that's what it means. He's got nice hands. Yeah, that's what it means. Yeah, Rashi says that. It says here in the footnote. Right? Many times, like instead of just saying that this guy's a glutton and he's this and that, they just said, something the opposite. He's got very, very nice hands. So like here, instead of saying that he's a gargeran, it says Misha Yadav Yafot. His hands are very, very nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So Tashema, another proof then, right? What about the shamash shachal kazay basar b'tzad tanur? If you remember, we spoke about the shamash. The shamash was going to eat the kazay basar right by the oven. So if he was smart, he could eat everything that he wants there. Because remember, once the shamash is eating there, he cannot eat with the other two groups. The shamash was the person that he's serving the other people. You understand? So now what happens is that why doesn't he do this? So he says, if the Bnei Chabura want to do a good thing with him, they're going to come and sit down beside him, and they're going to eat. Which means the Bnei Chabura could do him a favor. What's the favor? Instead of him eating by himself right beside the tanur, what they could do is very, very simple. What do? They all come and they sit beside him. Once they sit beside him, they made the Chabura by him, and now he's able to eat. These are the words of Yehuda. Ratzu'in, lo ratzu lo, but that's only if they want. Right? But if they don't want to, they're not obligated to do that. I says the Gemara, why? Neima lehu hakabiltum. Which means he could tell them, you accepted me to eat the Korban Pesach with you. So if so, you guys have to eat with me, right? And therefore, since I'm here by the oven, because I have to be the oven, because I'm in charge of the food, so you guys have to come here to eat. What do you mean that only if they wanted, they could come and they could do him a favor and sit down beside him? Is that they should be obligated? What? He is part of the Chabura. If he's not part of the Chabura, he's not allowed to eat it. No, I don't understand you. Even if he's a shamash, does he have to be counted as a Korban Pesach or not?
Of course.
Okay, so therefore.
But they didn't include him like them.
Additional.
Exactly. He's the
It
shamash.
doesn't matter. What do I care whether I include you as a shamash, as a woman, as a child, as a man? What do I care if I included you, right? That means we're all one group. So he could have said, the fact that you already included me, you already knew I was a shamash and you included me, so for you have to eat with me. This is where I have to eat in order to serve you. So for you guys have to eat. Not that if you want, don't want. No, you have to do it. But that's what he's saying. So the Gemara says it's not true. Shane Hatra, it's different over there. They could tell him, when we accepted you, we wanted that you should do this. So since we wanted that you should actually come and you should actually serve us, but we didn't actually come and you're meaning when we accepted you, we wanted you to serve us, not us to serve you. So the fact that we wanted you to serve us and not us to serve you, right? So therefore, what happens? So because of that, that's why. So they could answer him up. It's not true. So again, it's not a proof, right? Yes, because of what's happening.
Not to be rude. It's not equal in a way. Not to be rude.
It's not really not equal, but okay, fine. Okay. Tashema, another proof. Again, we're bringing back the case of the guy that he likes to eat. Rashaim nomar, they're allowed to tell him, go out and eat by yourself. Velo, not only that, elafilu chamisha ve'asu sibolet Even if you're going to have 5 people that they did a seudat chulin, a regular seudah, and they did it between themselves, and one of them just comes and starts eating away. Take your chelek and go. Shema mina, you learn from here that the Bnei Chabura are allowed to do that. Yet you're allowed to. Right? Which is, again, it's very interesting. Listen, this could happen. Saying, imagine right now, everyone comes, they put some money on to do a seudah. All of a sudden they come and you have one guy that he's eating for 3. And they're like, take your portion, out. Yeah, that's it. So he says, my velo'od. What do you mean velo'od? And not only that, right? So he says, lomi bayekama. It means that you don't even have to say it. Lomi by Pesach, not only by the Korban Pesach, the Matya Malebez, he could say, that when I did it, I just wanted to fix the Korban because we didn't want leftovers. But even on regular Seudat Chulin, that they're still their friends. They could do that. Which means that there's a right for a group to come and say, listen, you're just consuming too much. And therefore, on your own. There are those that say, Halo ibailan. This was not even a question. This was a question. Right? The people of the Chabura, they're allowed to come and divide the Korban Pesach, or not allowed to divide the Korban Pesach, which means can each one just come and take whatever is magia lahem, whatever is receiving to them, and then just go and eat on their own or not? So Tashma, we want to bring a proof. Yadav yafot in, and yadav yafot lo. That's only if he's a glutton. But if it's a regular person, you can't do that. And you see from here that if it's only a good, genuine reason, then you're allowed to come and send the guy flying. But if not, you cannot send the guy off. Why? Because at the end of the day, he's part of your chabura, so you have to be together. Shema mina. Okay, so that's what we're learning. Fine. Rav Papa, Ravuna ben Yeshua, Arivu Rifta Bada Adadi. So Rav Papa and Ravuna ben Yeshua, they were doing a shituf, right, to eating bread together. At the achil, right, until he ate Ravuna ben Yeshua chada, he ate 1 portion. Achil Rav Papa arba. So imagine Rav Huna ate 1 portion. Rav Papa ate 4 portions, 4 to 1. It's a good amount, no? So Amalei, so he comes and he says, plagli, right, which means let's take half, right, and each one is taking his own. That's it. And just each one we do our half. Amalei kabiltun. He said, what? You accepted me. So eitve kolan tiyufta. So Rav Huna, son of Yeshua, he asked all these questions. And they answered him just like we answered. So then he asked them another question from another Mikor, right? Which is the Reisha, the Braita, the second Braita. Bnei Chabura, right? When you have a Bnei Chabura and one of them they're a glutton. Amalei, so he went and he said, Hatam de'amlele ki kablin l'tekun zvicha. There you could say that when you accepted me, it was to fix the mizbeach, the korban, right? So therefore, what? Which means that what you accepted me is in order that the basad should not do that. But for us, it's just time that we're eating together. So if we're eating it together, what are you going to say now? Why did we obviously you accepted me to eat in one seudah? There they have a ta'ana. There they could say, listen, they didn't want leftovers. They had another place, so they joined them in. But they didn't expect that he's going to eat 4/5 or 2/3. You understand? They didn't. It's a normal portion. Here by us, it's a completely different case.
No, it's applied to everything.
It doesn't apply to everything.
We're buying 4 chairs. You take 2. Are you buying these 3 suits? You take 2?
One more time. Here, the Reisha of that Braita went and he said very simple that there was a ta'ana that they could say. The ta'ana that they could say is...
It doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. And more so in everything in life. You don't need
But
to
that's what he's saying. He's saying,
on
but
it.
you know that. It's not a chair that you know that every single person takes a chair. Food is not chair. Food, some people eat more, some people eat less.
Some, not
right?
4 to 1.
So now, if you're going to tell me now that you come, you know that certain guests eat more, certain guests eat less. So because of that, you accepted it, right? It's not the case like that we said about the Korban Pesach that you accepted him only just because you didn't want leftovers. And now all of a sudden you realize he's eating so much, so now I just go on your own. Here, you want to eat with me. So now, if you accepted that, by all means, yeah? The same thing applies with everything in life, yeah? So 8 ways. So we're going to come now and ask another question. Sibolet, yeah. What about the Seudat Chulin? Seudat Chulin, we also said you're allowed to come and say go out and that's it. So Rav Papa, he accepted it, which means the proof from the Sibolet, which is the proof from the Seifa, which is basically in a Seudat Chulin, that was a good proof. Not from the Korban Pesach. Because the Korban Pesach, they had a Tana. Here you don't have a Tana. So for the Seudat Chulin, there was a good proof. Therefore, they divided it and he left. Yeah. Azil Ariv Ba'de Ravina. So then Rav Yoshua went and he went with Ravina. Adeachi Ravuna B'Rav Yoshua Chada, Achi Ravina Tamanya. So now it became even worse. Why? Beforehand, when he was eating with Rav Papa, Rav Huna Rav Yoshua was eating 1 and Rav Papa was eating 4. Now he was eating 1 and Ravina was eating 8. So now instead of 1 to 4, it's 1 to 8. Amar mea pape velo chada Ravina. I prefer 100 of Papas and not 1 Ravina. Why? Because if he's eating, I'm eating 1, it's 1 to 4 ratio. Now it's double. So I prefer even 100. Okay, fine. He says, according to what we said before, it makes a whole calculation here in the art scroll. Something incredible. Fine, let's go. We learned in the Braita. Imagine right now a person comes and he's going to appoint with himself on the Korban Pesach and Korban Chagiga. So the money that he accepts for it is considered chulin, and he can do whatever he wants for it. Okay, which means, imagine right now I buy the Korban Pesach. Now before the Shechita, I start counting all these people, and I'm adding. Now they're paying me for joining the Korban Pesach. That money is chulin. Okay, it's not consecrated money. If somebody's going to sell his Korban Olah or Shlamim to somebody else to do a kapara, lo asa velo klum. He did not actually do anything. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to say umaot kol shehen. Any money that he gets, it's going to go to Nedava, which means Kaitza Mizbeach. It goes to Mizbeach. So now the Gemara is going to say like this. One second. Right? Even before going to the first part and understanding about the first part, right? We're just on the last part. We're already going to say, what did we just say? Somebody sells a Korban Olah and Shlamim. He didn't do anything. Right? What does that mean he didn't do anything? It's still his, which means that it's not going to be enough for somebody else. It's going to be for him. Now the Gemara said though, the money that he gets, they have to go to Kaitza Mizbeach. 1 second. If he didn't do anything, it wasn't a good sale. If it wasn't a good sale, why does he still have the money?
What do you mean?
Nothing happened, meaning that it still goes back to the original owners. Meaning when they're going to bring the sacrifice, it doesn't go for the people that bought it now. It goes back to the original owner that he owned it, which means that there was no sale. Huh? One more time. Right? A person comes and he has a Korban Olah or Shlamim. Right? I have to bring it. I'm the one. I have to bring Korban Olah or Shlamim. What do? I come and I sell it to you. Okay? Says the Gemara, it doesn't help. Why? It's still mine. Meaning that when they're going to bring it on the Mizbeach, they're not going to bring it for you, they're bringing it for me. One more time, I'll read through the words. Lo asa velo klum. Lo asa velo klum means krevim l'shem ba'alehem arishonim. Doesn't help. What? That's the halacha. The halacha is it doesn't help. Which one?
Because the original designation doesn't.
Yeah, once it was designated for me, for my kapara, gamanu. It doesn't help. You cannot buy something that it doesn't, there's no sale. Not everything in life, it's not a good sale. It's not a good sale. I'm going to ask you something. Can you take your wife's property? Can you take your wife's property and sell it? No. You sold it.
It's voided.
It's voided. The exact same thing. Lo asa velo klum, voided. So now what happens now? What happens is ma'ot kol shen, but the money, right? The money that he received, I received money. I sold it to you. It wasn't a good sale, but the money I received, it goes where? Kaitza Mizbeach. Asa Gemara, if it was voided, where's the money from? The money goes back. If he bought it from me, but it was a voided sale, I have to give him back the money. What does it mean that money goes to Kaitza Mizbeach?
The Korban goes on your name and the money goes back to me.
That's what should be, but the Gemara did not say that. The Gemara said the money goes to the Kaitza Mizbeach. Kaitza Mizbeach to the Bet HaMikdash. Yeah? So Amar Rava says it's a knas. Exactly. So it says it's a knas. What's a knas? Even though the mechira was not good and he didn't acquire the korban, he lost his money. And it goes to the Gdesh. Why? In order that another time you would never buy an Olah and Shlamim from someone else.
Why not?
That's what it says here.
Why not?
What?
Why not?
We don't want that. That's what he says. Right? We don't want that you should buy a Korban Olah Shlamim from someone else. We want you to buy a new Korban Olah and Shlamim. Not that you're going to come to somebody else. I didn't need this Korban Olah and Shlamim, so I'm going to buy from you. No.
That's the point. The point is not me buying. It's the point you not selling.
No, but you get punished, not me. I didn't get punished. You lost out. I didn't get punished. You understand? It's your fault for buying. Yeah. So my kol shein, why does it say also ma'ot kol shein? What does it mean? Any money? Just say ma'ot, the money. What's kol shein? So he says, af al gav de lo avushav ela arba, v'yavu lechamisha. which means even though the animal was only worth 4 zuz, and the buyers bought more, they paid more for it. They bought it for 5. Afilu ba'hi yetera, even on the extra, Kansur Rabbanan, the rabbis made a knas. Okay? So Amarula Ula says, Vitem Rav Oshia, something says, Rav Oshia, Efshar diade chavrim bavla et hamada iminta. Can we know the reason of what's going on here? Like, what's happening here? So he says like this. He says the reason is very, very simple. He says, Zei frish tale lepischo, vezei frish ma'ot lepischo. Heach ekdesh chala lekdesh. One person came and he separated a tle for the Korban Pesach. Another person didn't separate the tle, he separated money on the Korban Pesach. So how do you have that ekdesh is chala lekdesh? Tiktani ma'ot shebiyado chulin. How could it happen? At the end of the day, how is that money chulin? One more time. I come and I made a Korban Pesach. Before the Shechita, I counted everybody here in the Korban Pesach. Everyone pays me. So all the money that comes to me, what do we say? It's chulin. Says the Gemara, how could it be chulin? When I came and I put this tle as a Korban Pesach, this becomes holy. When you come and you wanted the money for the Korban Pesach, you put on the money Kodesh, you made it Hekdesh. So how all of a sudden now when you give me that money, does that become chulin? That's what the Gemara is asking. So the Gemara answers, Amar Abaye says, he loved the Ukmin Rav Oshia lahi b'manez zonan pischo v'rebi. Okay, there's a whole thing here about how do we answer up. What? We're going to speak about exactly zona pischo, right? B'torat etanan zona. So Bablina, we'll speak about it tomorrow exactly how do we actually come and we actually answer up this.